during the offering to gather these up. Write your name, or you can be anonymous. You can also write "do not share" if you have something you would like to be held in care by our worship leader and our pastoral care team, but you don't want spoken aloud in prayer. We have many activities and events happening each week in our community, and here are a few that are coming up soon. Today is our Sunday potluck. You may have noticed there's a lot of stuff in our social hall. Whether or not you were able to bring a dish, doesn't matter if you didn't. We hope that you will come and sit down and share a meal with us and be welcome after our worship service. In the wider community, the anniversary of the attacks on Israeli citizens is tomorrow. Please consider joining our Jewish neighbors at the Mount Sinai Temple at 5:30 p.m. tomorrow evening for a prayer vigil and a memorial service to honor those people killed or kidnapped and the tragedy of so many lives cut short on this day 1 year ago. Whether or not you've been able to attend a prior class, your chance to learn more about this congregation from leaders of our elected and appointed committees is coming up this Wednesday at 6 p.m. Please join us if you're interested in joining the church, and tell Reverend Elizabeth if you are feeling ready to become a member on our next membership Sunday. You are also invited to join the Reproductive Justice Initiative at the First Unitarian Society of Denver, Colorado, which is happening tonight at 7 p.m. in downtown Denver. Pam Houston will be in the pulpit to read from her book, Without Exception, Reclaiming Abortion, Personhood, and Freedom. We will have books after her reading in the community room. The Reproductive Justice Committee at FUSD will also provide light snacks and fellowship. Bring your friends, but please do not post this on social media. I'm going to have Heather come and talk for just a second about some Halloween festivities, and then we'll talk about our Share the Plate.
Hello, everybody. So we wanted to do something fun for adults or children, and or both. We're going to on to October 26th in the afternoon from like 4 to 8 between the social hall and downstairs. We're gonna have like a haunted house, treats and movies and stuff like that. So what we need is we need some volunteers to make those rooms downstairs scarier than they are, and we need.
Scary already.
Yeah, there. Never mind, it's taken care of. It's perfect. But there's going to be. We did it around that time frame so that we can have some pizza, some sandwiches, so you don't have to worry about dinner that day. If you have any kids, you can stay for the whole time. You can stay for just a little bit. But it's just something fun to probably get out of the weather because we know how it is around Halloween. So also another thing is what I would like to initiate before the end of October is if we have anybody that has a pressure washer in the congregation who can bring it, and we can spend one Saturday, a couple hours in the afternoon spraying down those tables and the chairs in the social hall to get it all nice and clean for the fall. And so we can get nice fresh stuff. So if you are interested, or if you know, or if you want to volunteer for that, lunch will be provided. And then just hit up Jed at administrator at UUCC. Thank you. I have it saved, so I can't remember it. But I would like to get that done so we can just, get it nice and clean and get everything all sparkly for the new season. So I have been told by my sources that we have a pressure washer. So if I could just have some volunteers to come in, and we'll probably do it in the back parking lot. I don't know how a pressure washer works, but maybe in the back parking lot or something. We'll figure it out. And then coffee, tea, hot chocolate, lunch, stuff like that. So, and we'll figure out a date on when to do that, probably here in about a couple, 2-3 weeks. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Excited for those Halloween festivities and the downstairs haunted house situation. That's amazing. We gather in person and on Zoom every week, giving from our resources to sustain the work of our church and share our abundance with community organizations, broadening the reach of our values. You can find the text to give number and a QR code in your order of service, or use your Realm app for electronic giving, or your Share the Plate offerings and pledges may also be dropped in the baskets when they pass here in just a few minutes. Our Share the Plate partner for October is the Camilla House. I think we all know a little bit about the Camilla House, but let's welcome Josh Knowles to tell you a little bit more about their work. Welcome, Josh.
Move it up, I'm kind of tall. So my name is Joshua Knowles. I have recently became the kitchen director manager for the Camilla Shelter House Resource Center. It is a sober living resource center. A lot of people think that when they hear the Camilla House, they think homeless shelter. I like to consider it more of a leg up. I have a 15-year-old, a 17-year-old, and my wife and myself have adopted a 6-year-old, which is technically our nephew. And my 17-year-old suffers from borderline personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, among a number of things. And a lot of our residents there suffer from such things as that. So when people, I like to consider it a resource center. I hate when people call it a homeless shelter, because as long as you have someone that's willing to put their hand out, pull you up, regardless of they could get pulled down, when you have that hand, that's what people need. It's not that you're homeless. I think it's that you don't have they feel like they don't have a family. And when you feel like you don't have a family or a resource of types, it just compacts the problems that you're already having. I started out, well, let me start out by saying I'm the only child of 2 deadhead hippies. My mother going away from that once she had me, trying to get more on the straight and narrow. My father, not so much. My father was homeless for 25 years, first 25 years of my life. Spent summers with my grandfather, where he was a firefighter for the Littleton Fire Department, was their house cook, hence my love of food. Because back in the 90s, you could leave your 8-year-old grandchild at the firehouse and tell him to stir the chili pot. And if anything happens, call 911. It's a firehouse. So that's where my love of cooking came. When other kids were watching, Saturday Night Nick, for all of my 30, 40-something-year-olds in here, I was watching Emeril Lagasse, Malto Mario. I don't know if you guys, it's a Southern show. Justin Wilson, he was a Cajun cook. That's that's one of my favorite people in the world. So being a single mom, my mom had it hard because I wanted to try all the strange foods. I wasn't a chicken nugget and French fry kid by any stretch of the imagination. But I was always taught that you never leave anybody behind, no matter who they are, no matter what they believe. We are a race. We are a species, and it is just one. I was taught to never look at things like that. So being the humanitarian that I was always raised to be and be very giving, I had to find a way to bring my passion and love of cooking into this. And my first go at it was in the retirement community, the independent living community. There were times, to tell you the truth, that, they didn't, I was telling Miss Lori when she came in and volunteered with us that there were times when we would have residents that were like, I just want to go be with my creator. I'm ready. And I felt like I was prolonging somebody's self-induced suffering. That's where, and we got bought. Unfortunately, it is a corporate-ran business, and we were bought out by a company, and I am very strong in my values, my morals, and my beliefs. And the company that bought us out was not, after reading their breakdown of what they wanted to do, I could not do it. I could not do this. Like, I'm not going to do this. And abruptly, because of my mental, my work-life balance was seriously taken out of whack. An executive chef never works 40 hours. I understand that, and I know that wholeheartedly. And I was working 80, 85 hours a week. My son's mental health took a toll for the worse because of it. Thank God he's now getting the help that he needs. Like, thank you so much. But I had to leave. And looking on Indeed, posted for one day, was the kitchen manager and director of the Camilla House Resource Center. And I looked at my wife and looked back at me, and she applied for me. So I got a call from Miss Robin, walked in and felt a weight soulfully, metaphysically lifted off of me, knowing that this is where I wanted to be, this is what I wanted to do, accepted the job, and a week and a half later was offered an executive chef position for a company here in town, and it was for about $25,000 more a year than what I would be making at the Camilla House, and I turned it down because something told me that this is where I need to be. This is what I need to do. Now knowing that and doing this for the past 90 days, if you would have saw me 90 days ago, probably about 30 pounds lighter, sickly, just really didn't want to do it anymore. And working in the mental health care advocacy field at the Camilla Shelter has taken me leaps and bounds. Through this, my son was able to get his help through the help of Robin and a couple of our board members, and me trying to figure out how to do this all by, with two other kids, one being a football player and the other one being a 6-year-old, as we all know 6-year-olds are. The Camilla Shelter is helping me do this, is they are financially, they are helping me with this. So, I thank you guys for having me. A little bit about myself. I look forward if any of y'all want to come in and volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers. And I've got great staff in the kitchen. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
you. And so, with gratitude, we receive this beautiful music, this offering, these words, for the well-being of this congregation and the world beyond. We feel the season turning, the early sunset glancing through the red-tinged leaves. The newspaper arrives in the cold morning air, a flock of migrating geese, a feeling of being on the edge of something new. First, we lament, repent, find what is not yet right, and bring ourselves back into relationship with our people. And then we celebrate to find hope renewed, for these are the days of awe, a time to lay welcome to a new year, a time to make the old year right before we lay it in its place on the shelf of our memories. We bless wine or juice and drink. We bless our braided bread and eat. We dip our apples into honey to savor the sweetness. We find our place once more in the cycle. May the sound of a shofar carry us across the threshold where lie the possibilities we may imagine for ourselves and for our children. And for our opening hymn today, I invite you to take your gray hymnals, rising in body or in spirit, to join in singing number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Gather in thanks, gather in sympathy, now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Our separate fires will give
We light this chalice in honor of Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. May its flame call us to search our souls, sifting through the past year to see where we may have missed the mark. May its light guide us towards the courageous and open-hearted apology, toward repair of relationships in our lives. May its heat warm our hearts to offer forgiveness to those who have wronged us, allowing us to release the chains of grudge and blame that have bound us to them. And may its strength help us to take actions that are within our power to make this next year more just, more loving, more peaceful for our communities and for all of humanity. Let us say, Amen. If the young or young at heart wish to join us on the chancel at this time, we invite you to share in the leadership of speaking our covenant in unison before our time for all ages. The words of our covenant may be found on the inside cover of your order of service.
Hello, glad you're here today. All right. And so, as always, we begin our covenant with love is the spirit of this church, and service its cause. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth, and to help others. All right. I'm going to sit a little to this side personally because there's a table here right in front of me if I sit on that side. So you all can have a table in front of you, but I'd better not, or Zoom won't be able to see me. And there are people on there joining us from afar. Good to see y'all. All right. So today we are talking about, hi, it's good to see you, Laureline. And today we are talking about the Jewish New Year. These are the high holy days, which is the most important event in the Jewish calendar. It's 10 days of New Year's celebrations. So yes, you're right. It starts with Rosh Hashanah and ends with Yom Kippur. And in those days, in Jewish myth and legend, what happens is the gates to the next life are open. The veil thins, as some of our pagan folks like to say, or the doors are open, and the boundaries between now and future, between life and death, are all open. So this is a time to think about what you remember from the past year, maybe times you've made a mistake, or you were not as kind to someone as you meant to be. And to think about how in the future you might live a good life, one that you will be proud of, all the way until the end of your life. And in that time, it's interesting to note, Jewish days begin at what time? Sunset. Does anyone know? Yeah, sunset. So the Jewish day always begins when the sun sets on the day before. So they start with a time of darkness and then move into light. We usually think of the day as starting when? Here in the US, either at midnight or for a lot of people when you wake up in the morning when the sun rises, we think of that as day. But in the Jewish tradition, we start in the darkness. So if you think about the new year like that, you start with, what are the things that are the mistakes? What are the hard things? And then we move up into celebration from there. Kind of like moving from dark into light again. So in Israel, for 2,000 years, there has been a place called the Wailing Wall. And the Wailing Wall is the last wall left standing after the Jewish temple in the center of Jerusalem was destroyed in a war 2,000 years ago. And that wall is a place that people use sometimes when they're sad and they have a lamentation. A lamentation is a sadness or a grief that you have that you need to express. Sometimes when they have a prayer or a hope. Sometimes when they need to confess, when they need to talk about a mistake they might have made or a bad thing that they did or that happened. And so people will go to the Wailing Wall and they'll write down some of their prayers, their lamentations, and roll them up and stick them in the cracks in the wall. So people usually don't, because would that feel very respectful if you thought you were just talking to God and yourself and then someone else was like, ooh, I wonder what's in here. Yeah, so usually people don't. But 2 times a year, there are special people who are like holy sweepers who come and they pluck all of those prayers out of the wall and take them to the central graveyard in Jerusalem and bury them so that they can return to the earth and dissolve and refresh you for the year ahead. And so we're going to actually do some of that today. If you all want to grab 1 or 2 bricks, and Carol Jean will help you, we're going to build a little bit of a wall across this altar table while I talk to some of our adults, because we are going to write some prayers and lamentations. That is not a brick. It would be awfully light for a brick. It is a videotape brick that we have made brick-like. Jed helped. So, while our children are building our little Wailing Wall, if you feel called to write a prayer, a lamentation, a confession, you have a strip of paper in your order of service, or there are cards and envelopes in the back of your seats. This could be a space for laments, for things left undone, or the projects you hoped to begin, for the grief of losing a friend or family. This might be a space to unpack some of your feelings about the world's larger problems, grief or anger around climate disasters like Hurricane Helene and its aftermath, about the loss of life in Israel and Palestine from 1 year ago to the current day, or your fears around Iran's escalation with the use of missiles. Perhaps you're frustrated about local or national politics, fearful about the loss of reproductive rights. For our children, if you would like to write as well, you are welcome to return to your seats and work on that with a parent or an adult friend. Perhaps you're sad about some of the ways our local schools are losing buildings or losing access to books. Perhaps there's a sadness even more close to your heart that just needs to be held quietly in care. Or anger you need to let go of. Some resentment you need to stuff somewhere that is not inside of your own heart. or maybe a hope, a commitment, a promise to be made. Whatever you wish to add, it is welcome here. And when you are ready, when your joy or sorrow, your hope, your confession is written, you can roll up that paper and bring it up to place in the cracks in our wall. These will stay through our service and be returned to the earth in this time when the gates are open. And a couple that I will speak aloud. Hope for Mike and for the Solis family and his continued healing. And joy for Lori's son, Charlie, who has married his spiritual partner, Emmy, yesterday. So much love and joy and peace to them on their journey. And so, with papers placed, with the burdens of our hearts written, may we find in this space a renewal of peace, a restoration of comfort, some rebinding of this community, which enfolds us as we recommit to the year ahead. Amen, and blessed be.
And this is our sacred message from the Tao Te Ching, reading number 29. Do you want to improve the world? I don't think it can be done. The world is sacred. It can't be improved. If you tamper with it, you'll ruin it. If you treat it like an object, you'll lose it. There is a time for being ahead, a time for being behind, a time for being in motion, a time for being at rest, a time for being vigorous, a time for being exhausted, a time for being safe, a time for being in danger. The Master sees things as they are without trying to control them. She lets them go their own way and resides at the center of the circle. At One by Victoria Stafford. On the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, every year, every fall, the people make their peace with anyone they have wronged or slighted or injured in any way, neglected in the past 12 months. The task is not to patch things up, smooth things over, reach a compromise, or sweep mistakes or uneasy memories under the rug. The task is not to feel better. The task is ownership. The goal is truth for its own redemptive sake. I did this. I said this to you. It was wrong. I neglected this. I botched this. I betrayed you thusly. I demeaned you, whether you ever knew it or not. This is the truth in which both of us are living. I ask you to forgive me. Now imagine how many deep breaths you would need to take. Imagine how many doors you'd have to knock on, how many phone calls you'd have to make, how many letters, how many lunches and coffees, how many awkward moments with your children and your parents and with strangers, like the cashier with whom you spoke so harshly. Awkward is irrelevant. The task is not about comfort. It's about truth, about wholeness and holiness, restoration. Imagine this. Someone has been preparing all year long to speak with you, to write to you, to ask you a hard question. Perhaps in some way, not quite conscious, you have even known this, and you have been preparing too. Finally, you answer the door or the phone or open the letter with shaky hands, and there it is, what you thought you've been longing for, but really have dreaded. Someone is asking your forgiveness. The task is not about comfort. It is about truth. Awkward is irrelevant. You get to choose now. You have to choose whether and how you will participate in restoration. Abandon the pleasant piety that claims the knee-jerk forgiveness as the unquestioned moral course. You get to choose which way you will write this in this case, between you as persons and with all your gods. What response will make the world more whole? Imagine something yearns in us to come round right. Something is creaky, rusty, heavy, almost calcified within us tries, in spite of us and all of our fears and self-deceptions, to turn and creak and turn again and come round a little truer. Something in us stretches us towards conversion. Imagine healing, holy, from within.
A wise Jewish teacher, colloquially known as the Rambam, was once consulted on a subject of purity in the Jewish tradition. Another rabbi had asked him to speak on a matter of the mikveh. The mikveh is a traditional Jewish bath which women use to restore purity after all manner of activities. The rabbi asked the Rambam, if a woman, let us say, has picked up a lizard, an animal considered unclean in the Jewish tradition, and therefore needs to be purified, to be restored, what happens if this woman jumps in the mikveh? She is completely enclosed in the waters of purification according to all of the ritual, and so too is the lizard. Is she clean? For she and the lizard have been fully enveloped and washed according to the law? Or is she still unclean? Well, the Rambam considered the question for only a moment before saying, in order to become pure, she need change only one thing about this practice. She must put down the lizard. It feels like a little bit of a silly question when it's a literal question. I mean, obviously, don't hold on to an unclean thing while you're trying to become pure once more. But in metaphor, this story serves us as a reminder of deeper consideration. For in the Jewish tradition, at the new year, as we have been hearing, people are called to remember individual and collective errors, to consider what might be needed for repair, for the harms and mistakes that have caused injury, the loss, injustice, or pain that has been added to the world, and to complete that cycle, to re-purify through apology, through repair, before the end of the high holy days, that their names may be once more inscribed in the book of life, made new and ready for the year to come. In order to find that refreshing, clean slate, we have to not forget all that has happened, but to let go of the feelings of guilt and anxiety and shame, of the anger, resentment. We need to make a new beginning. We have to put down, at least metaphorically, the lizard, that thing that is still twitching, still causing us to hold on to the yucky bits in our soul, in our feelings. For the Jewish people as a whole, hidden inside this story, in this annual tradition, there is perhaps a lesson. What lizards, what built resentments and angers and fears are making it impossible to find peace in the lands of their heritage, the lands they must share with the Palestinian people. For us, much closer to home, we might consider how letting go of these little lizards of resentment and suspicion might change our personal lives. Might we consider offering someone another chance, trying to restore a relationship with someone whose behaviors have been hurtful or just irritating in the past? A desire to recommit to something or someone we have turned away from because we felt ashamed or guilty or resentful. What little things are we holding on to, letting twitch by never letting go of that little lizard of feeling? I've been finishing up a year of programming with the Wyoming Interfaith Network, the Voices of Faith in Leadership program. And as I've spoken on before, we've had a chance to visit with leaders from the Arapaho and Shoshone nations to hear about misconduct, the history of genocide and displacement on this land that we all love. We're coming up on what was known and is still known to some as Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. Canada is holding their annual Thanksgiving celebration. We are moving into the time of harvest when we too will be holding celebrations of land and people, of memory and of gratitude. And so, I have been thinking about the many problems of missing and murdered Indigenous women, violence enacted on tribal members and on the reservation lands themselves, the years of deeply seated stereotypes about Indigenous people and their places in this world, the generational traumas leading to alcoholism and substance abuse and cycles of violence and interpersonal conflict within Indigenous communities as well as from the outside. Opening my awareness to conflicts that are structural over jurisdiction and the longstanding legal habit of placing lesser charges upon white perpetrators of crimes against people of color. The ways in which we have constructed Indian law over the generations to be one of paternalism rather than partnership. There are so many entwined problems here on our own land that coalesce and form an environment where abuse and violence and even murder becomes normalized, becomes one of the well-used tools for coping with anger, and instead of learning other skills for conflict and correction. For me, this is part of becoming a good minister for Wyoming, becoming part of this larger community that has a responsibility to land and people, to be supportive and in solidarity with this place, with these peoples for generations to come. And I know that we cannot solve the problems of violence and harm for all Indigenous peoples all over the world today. Not here in Wyoming, not in Israel or Palestine, not between Ukrainians and Russia. And yet, to begin that process is always a choice of many individuals weaving together the frayed edges of an interdependent web. To begin the conversation about reorganizing our legal and criminal systems, to restore lands to legal control of historic populations, to solve cycles of violence, so much must be done, one by one, bit by bit. We must let go of historic assumptions about what legal justice must and should look like. Let go of stereotypes about Indigenous populations or preconceptions about what relationships should exist between state and tribal governments. Let go of minimizing harm done to others. Let go of defensiveness about what may have been done in our name by our ancestors or even our present government systems, in order to become an ally, to become active in solving what problems we see. We must be open to the possibility of new growth. And that means today, as we leave lamentations and prayers at the weeping wall of our own sacred community, built and seeded by the helping hands of some of our youngest congregants, laden with the griefs of all. We begin our practice once again of restoration. It is not one of finding ourselves to be perfect and seeing the world as broken. As the Tao Te Ching reminds us, the world is not an object made for your fixing. Instead, we hope that we will see the world and ourselves as whole and holy and bound together, inextricable, engaging with that concept of atonement, of being at one, as Reverend Victorious Safford wrote, at one with the universe, in the harmony of what safety and well-being could be ours if our attitudes were to shift just a little. If we were to notice the ways we are already being invited by this world to be well, to be whole, to offer our good, calm, values-centered selves, as we find in moments throughout our lives. Atonement, repentance, restoration are not a task we finish for once and for all. And so the new year comes to us again and again. Here in the fall, as our leaves fall and mistakes fall away. In January, when snow covers the world to create a blank canvas, white and glittering, where we renew goals and hopes for the future. In February, again with the Lunar New Year, as the world breathes its way towards spring abundance and roots began to grow under the ground. Again and again and again, we come back, just as we do each Sunday, to renew our spirits, to drink from the wells of wisdom from many sources, to find our center, to be reminded of our values once more, to set down whatever little lizards we have picked up along the way, whatever unhelpful baggage we might be carrying, so that we are once again ready to venture out into the world, starting from our best selves. At least until another lizard runs up begging to be carried, we pick up some new problem, make some new mistake, commit some other unkindness in a moment of inattention. And that will need to be released next time. But that is a story for another day. So in this moment, let us rise in body or in spirit to respond with hymn number 1011 from our Teal hymnals, Return Again, the invitation from the Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach in the Jewish tradition to return again and again to the home of your soul. May it be so.
Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again.
Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice flame, sending forth our children to carry the flame as they continue their religious education.
I think it is Potluck Sunday and we have the wrong
Okay,
there today.
never mind.
We'll keep our flame together for today.
So we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry within our hearts until we are together again.
And so, as we close this sacred hour, I hope you have found moments of peace and possibility. And as you go into the world, may you be returned again and again to those moments when the world can be met and understood as the home of your soul, the home of our shared values, and of the possibility that we are all part of the beloved community, all bound together for good. Blessed be.